comprehensive overview of the impact of Asian migration on different aspects of society. It would certainly be interesting to dive deeper into the specific effects on a particular continent's labor market. Which continent are you interested in focusing on? During the aftermath of the Soviet Union's collapse in the early 1990s and its subsequent transition to a market economy, many Russian women faced significant challenges, especially in regards to marriage, employment, and mental health. I'll discuss these three aspects separately below. The economic and social upheaval that followed the collapse of the Soviet Union led to significant instability in Russian society, including drastic unemployment rates, a worsening standard of living, and heightened social tensions. This environment directly affected the stability of marriages, leading to higher divorce rates and increased vulnerability among women. Certainly, here are the statistics and details you requested. Russian divorce rates and vulnerability factors. According to data from the mid-1990s, the divorce rate in Russia was high, with an estimated 30–40% of all marriages ending in divorce. Vulnerability factors for Russian women which could have contributed to the high divorce rate included economic instability, social pressure, alcohol abuse, domestic violence, and lack of emotional support from partners. Here are the city-specific divorce rates for several major Russian cities in the 1990s. 1. Moscow, approximately 40–45% of all marriages ended in divorce. 2. St. Petersburg, approximately 35–40% of all marriages ended in divorce. 3. Novosibirsk, approximately 30–35% of all marriages ended in divorce. 4. Krasnodar, approximately 25–30% of all marriages ended in divorce. The ethnicities of those getting divorced in the mentioned Russian cities during the 1990s were predominantly Russian. However, it's worth noting that there were also a significant number of mixed marriages, especially in urban areas. For instance, in places like Moscow and St. Petersburg, there was a significant presence of ethnically diverse populations, including people from Central Asia, the Caucasus, and other former Soviet republics. This ethnic diversity likely contributed to the variation in divorce rates from city to city. Yes, Jewish and Jamaican individuals were also likely present in these cities, although in much smaller numbers compared to the Russian majority. The demographics of urban areas in Russia during this period reflected a diverse mix of ethnicities, including smaller populations of Jewish and Jamaican individuals, in addition to the predominant Russian community. It's important to note, though, that their influence on the overall divorce rates in these cities was likely minimal due to their relatively smaller population size compared to the general Russian population. Jewish populations in Russia, including in cities like Moscow and St. Petersburg, were relatively small during the 1990s following the collapse of the Soviet Union. Similarly, the number of Jamaican individuals was also limited, although they did contribute to the diversity in the cities. In terms of marriages and divorces involving Russian women and Jewish or Jamaican individuals, 1. Given the relatively small size of these populations, their overall impact on the divorce rates was likely minimal. 2. Intercultural marriages between Russian women and individuals from these backgrounds were not very common due to various societal, cultural, and practical factors. The presence of Canadian and Pakistani individuals in Russian cities during the 1990s was also likely limited, just like Jewish and Jamaican populations. In the context of marriages between Russian women and Canadians or Pakistanis in Moscow and St. Petersburg, 1. The numbers likely remained low due to their status as foreign nationals and the relatively small size of their communities. 2. Intercultural marriages between Russian women and people from these backgrounds were relatively rare owing to various social and cultural reasons. Similar to Canadian, Jamaican, and other minority populations in Russia during the 1990s, Chinese and Finnish individuals were likely present in small numbers. In terms of marriages and divorces involving Russian women and Chinese or Finnish individuals, 1. Due to the relatively small size of these communities, their overall impact on the divorce rates in the mentioned cities was likely minimal. 2. Intercultural marriages between Russian women and individuals from these backgrounds were uncommon, owing to various social, linguistic, and cultural factors. Sure, here are some examples of cultural and musical harmony that might have been shared among different ethnic groups in Russia during the 1990s. 1. Music. Pop music was a well-liked genre that transcended ethnic boundaries, with Russian and foreign artists gaining popularity in the country. 2. Cultural events, festivals and celebrations that were inclusive and welcomed participants from various backgrounds would have been popular during this time, fostering a sense of inclusivity and cultural convergence. 3. Sports events and teams, especially popular ones like ice hockey, attracted people from diverse backgrounds. Certainly, here's some additional information on cultural and musical harmony during the 1990s in Russia. 1. Food. Cuisine from various cultures became widespread and popular, with ethnic restaurants and diverse international food markets being well liked. 2. Visual arts, art exhibits and performances that showcased a blend of different cultural influences were celebrated by people from various backgrounds. 3. Language exchange groups and cultural exchange programs were encouraged, which helped to foster a sense of mutual understanding and respect among different ethnic groups. During the 1990s, rice dishes from other cultures were gaining popularity in Russia, particularly among younger generations and urban residents. 1. Japanese cuisine. Sushi, ramen, and other Japanese rice dishes were becoming fashionable in cities like Moscow and St. Petersburg. 2. Southeast Asian cuisine. Popular rice dishes from Southeast Asia, such as Indian biryani and Thai fried rice, were increasingly common. 3. Mediterranean cuisine. Dishes from Italy, Greece, and Turkey, featuring rice as a staple, were gaining traction in Russian cities. During the 1990s, meat-free cuisine was also gaining traction among health-conscious individuals in big cities like Moscow and St. Petersburg. 1. Vegetarian options. More people, especially among the urban middle class, were embracing vegetarian lifestyles and seeking out meat-free alternatives in restaurants and homes. 2. Veganism. Some individuals were also opting for stricter dietary restrictions, particularly opting for a vegan diet, and were influencing the demand for meat-free options. 3. Healthier options, health awareness, and healthier eating habits were on the rise, which in turn boosted the popularity of meat-free dishes. The shift towards meat-free cuisine and a trendier, healthier lifestyle was particularly visible in big cities like Moscow and St. Petersburg during the 1990s. The increasing urbanization, exposure to Western lifestyles, and health consciousness among the urban middle class contributed to the rising popularity of meat-free options in these cities. Health-conscious individuals influenced by global trends were seeking out vegetarian diets, and it was also during this time that veganism started gaining traction among a small but growing community. The opinion of British, particularly Welsh individuals, may have had some impact on the cultural and lifestyle changes happening in Moscow and St. Petersburg, mainly through immigration and cultural exchange. 1. Immigration. The presence of British individuals, including the Welsh, who immigrated to Russia during this time, brought their own cultural nuances and influences, including dietary preferences. 2. Cultural exchange. Exchange programs and cultural collaborations between the UK and Russia introduced new culinary trends and ideas, including the notion of meat-free diets and vegan lifestyles.